Chapter 70. You are fighting a losing battle. Richard stood completely rooted to the spot, stunned by the casual description Damian had just given for the legendary headmaster. What the fuck? Is that how you should be addressing your own master? He didn't know whether to laugh or cry at this kid's complete lack of reverence. After recovering from his shock, Richard cleared his throat. Yes, well, that old man is one of the most powerful individuals in the entire Federation and has trained countless elite warriors over his long career. But yes, that's him. He took another long drag from his cigar. So, Damian, what exactly happened tonight? Those injuries on your students looked pretty serious. Some combat-related trauma, aura burns, broken bones. That's not the kind of damage you get from academy sparring. Damian's expression didn't change at all. We just had an accident. Training exercise went a bit wrong. You know how it is. The lie was so blatant, so obvious, that it was almost insulting. Richard's eye twitched slightly. An accident, and those 6 military-grade armored trucks that transported everyone back to campus. We picked those up along the way. Someone was generous enough to lend them to us. Damian's tone remained perfectly calm and casual. Richard stared at him for a long moment, reading the clear message in those crimson eyes. I have no intention of answering your questions, and we both know you have no actual right to ask about anything that happened outside academy campus boundaries. I see. Richard sighed again, much more heavily this time. He'd been a professor long enough to know when to drop a line of questioning. Well, accidents happen, I suppose. Just try to be more careful in the future. He took another drag from his cigar, organizing his thoughts. But since we're having this conversation anyway, I do want to give you some advice. Professor to student, you should take it seriously. Damian said nothing, just waited. Everyone in this academy is a fellow student, Damian. You're all here to learn, grow, and eventually serve the Federation together in fighting the monsters, creating divisions, forming factions, building conflicts. It's not healthy for anyone involved. Richard's voice took on that practiced, gentle tone of someone delivering a moral lesson. You should really consider controlling your Mafia organization better. Don't create unnecessary issues with the noble students. Learn to find common ground, compromise where possible. There's no need for all this tension and conflict between commoners and nobles. Damian's expression remained completely neutral as he listened. But inside, his thoughts were far less calm. People never change, do they? In my past life, there were always people giving me moral lectures about right and wrong, about playing nice and following the rules. And now in this life, it's the exact same thing. Different world, different people, same hypocritical bullshit. It's always the same pattern. Only when the interests of those at the top start getting affected, only when the established order feels threatened, that's when they suddenly start caring about morality and proper conduct. When nobles suppress commoners for years, nobody says anything. But the moment someone fights back, suddenly it's all about unity and compromise and finding common ground. Fucking hypocrites. Richard continued, warming to his theme. And honestly, Damian, you need to think realistically here. Your Mafia faction simply won't be able to keep up with the noble faction's growth rate anyway. They have access to expensive aura-strengthening potions, rare supplements, advanced training methods, personal instructors, resources that cost millions of Federation coins. How can you possibly compete with that? The gap will only widen over time. It's not sustainable. Damian finally spoke, his voice cutting through Richard's lecture. Professor, you should know better than anyone how much bullshit you're saying right now. Richard's eyes widened slightly at the blunt response. I couldn't be bothered with this talk. You're a smart man. You know exactly what you're doing here, and you know that everything you just said is complete garbage. So why don't we both drop the act? Silence. Then Richard's gentle smile faded, replaced by something more genuine. He chuckled and shrugged. "All right, fair enough. You're sharper than most students your age. I'll be direct then." His tone shifted, becoming more businesslike and honest. "Realistically speaking, your group won't be able to keep pace with the noble faction's advancement. The sheer volume of resources they consume daily is staggering. Aura-strengthening potions worth thousands of coins each, rare medicinal supplements, access to S-rank and SS-rank weapon arts, personal combat instructors. That's not even mentioning the advantages of generational knowledge and training from childhood." Richard turned to face Damian directly. "And it's going to waste crucial time for your Mafia members. Time they should be spending focused purely on their own growth and advancement. You might be a genuine genius, Damian. Your talent is obvious. But what about the others? What about Edrin, Lysa, Ronan, all those other students following you? Eventually, they'll desperately need those same resources to keep advancing. Expensive supplements, rare skills, quality weapon arts. And you won't be able to provide those things for them. You don't have the funding, the connections, the institutional support." His voice carried genuine conviction now. "So realistically, it would actually be better for those commoner students to accept becoming subordinates to noble families. They'd get the resources they need, proper training and opportunities to grow stronger. Yes, they'd be in a subordinate position, but they'd also have actual futures as powerful awakeners. What you're offering them is pride and independence, sure, but pride doesn't make you stronger. Resources do. And without resources, they'll eventually hit walls they can't break through." Richard paused, letting that sink in. "You're fighting a losing battle here, Damian. Not because of talent or determination, but because of simple economic reality. The system is designed this way for a reason. It's not fair, but it's effective." Damian stood there completely still, no expression visible on his blood-stained face. The wind whipped his crimson hair around. Thunder rumbled overhead. He said absolutely nothing for a long moment. Then he turned to Richard and bowed slightly. "Thank you for your advice, Professor, and thank you for the cigar as well. I appreciate your honesty at the end there." His voice was polite, respectful, completely neutral. "I should get going now. It's getting late." Without waiting for a response, Damian turned and walked toward the roof access door. Richard watched him go, unable to read anything from the kid's body language or tone. Did any of that actually get through to him, or did I just waste my breath? Damian descended the stairs alone, his footsteps echoing in the empty stairwell. As he walked, his thoughts churned. Resources always comes back to resources and money. But that's fine. That's exactly why I went after the Serpent Gang tonight. Richard thinks I can't provide for my people. He thinks the Mafia will crumble under economic pressure. He has no idea what I just accomplished tonight. No idea that I now control an entire territory generating income. No idea that this is just the beginning." A cold smile crossed his face. "Let them all keep underestimating me. Let them think I'm fighting a losing battle. It makes everything so much easier." He exited the medical wing building and walked alone into the dark campus night. The storm finally broke overhead, rain beginning to fall in heavy drops. Damian didn't bother seeking shelter. He just kept walking, letting the rain wash the dried blood from his skin and clothes. By the time he reached his dormitory, he was soaked through. But the blood was gone, and his mind was already working on the next steps. The next territories to claim. The next moves in a game nobody else even knew they were playing. When Damian woke up the next morning, he found himself lying on hard ground surrounded by massive trees. What the hell? He distinctly remembered falling asleep in his own bed inside his dormitory room last night, exhausted from the operation. But now he'd woken up in the middle of a dense forest, sunlight filtering through an impossibly thick canopy overhead. When he looked around, trying to make sense of the situation, he found the strange old man who taught him the abyssal slaughter weapon art sitting calmly under a nearby tree. The man was eating what looked like incredibly delicious roasted meat, tearing chunks off with his bare hands. He looked exactly the same as the day they'd first met. Long white hair and beard tied with random knots, but he had a surprisingly muscular body that suggested far more strength than his ancient appearance implied. "Help yourself." The old man pointed toward the meat without looking up, having noticed Damian wake. Damian stood up slowly, brushed dirt and leaves off his clothes, then walked over and sat down near the old man. He grabbed a piece of the meat and started eating. He was genuinely hungry, and the food definitely didn't disappoint. It tasted absolutely heavenly, far better than anything he'd eaten at the academy cafeteria. Rich, savory, with flavors he couldn't quite identify. "Why didn't you just wake me up normally instead of abducting me while I was sleeping?" Damian asked in a confused, slightly annoyed tone while continuing to eat. "The last time I teleported you while you were conscious, you immediately vomited all over my face." The old man replied with a grimace, glaring at Damian with obvious irritation. "I learned my lesson. Unconscious transportation is cleaner." Damian looked a bit awkward and quickly focused all his attention on eating, deliberately avoiding the glare. The silence stretched for several minutes, both of them just eating in companionable quiet. "Are you the head master?" Damian finally spoke again, remembering what Professor Richard had mentioned the other night. The old man stopped eating and looked at him properly for the first time. "When you asked about my identity previously, you weren't qualified to know my name or position. I actually planned to cut off your head and add it to my collection when you inevitably failed to learn my weapon art properly." "Seriously, what's the deal with this guy's weird head fetish?" Damian kept quiet and listened with a helpless expression on his face. "But it seems luck was on your side. You eventually succeeded in learning the basics and even reached minor success level. I kept my eyes on you every single day you practiced, watching your progress." The old man cleaned his oily hands on his robes, then looked at Damian with a genuinely serious expression. "Now that you've successfully learned my art and achieved minor success, you can officially be called my disciple, so allow me to properly introduce myself." He straightened his back, and suddenly the air around them felt heavier. "You may call me Headmaster Kaiser. I have been the headmaster of Stormhold Academy since the day it was first established by my own hands over a century ago. I am one of the most powerful humans in the entire Federation." Damian's eyes widened in genuine shock. He'd never expected the eccentric old man sitting casually in front of him to be the legendary, mysterious founder of the Academy himself. A living monster who was more than 200 years old. The being who'd established the very first academy dedicated to training humanity's best warriors in the endless fight against the monsters beyond the portals. There were countless tales and rumors about who had actually established Stormhold Academy over the decades, but no specific name was ever officially confirmed or spoken. The person sitting in front of him eating roasted meat like a common traveler was actually one of the greatest humans to ever exist in the entire history of this planet. Only now was Damian truly understanding why Professor Richard had put that strange, stunned expression on his face when Damian had casually described the old man as having a weird fetish. "I have personally trained thousands upon thousands of students over my long life, but only those who ever successfully learned my abyssal slaughter weapon art could truly be considered my actual disciples." Kaiser's voice carried weight. "And now you have earned the right to call me master as well." Damian adopted a more serious expression on his face but still didn't speak, processing this revelation. But don't think of it as some kind of great achievement or honor. Kaiser's tone turned colder, almost bitter. All those who became my disciples throughout history died on various battlefields before ever growing up to their full potential. My real disciples never lived past 20 years of age. Every single one of them fell in combat. He said this with absolutely no expression on his weathered face, as if discussing the weather rather than the deaths of people he'd personally trained. I see. Master, can you tell me why you brought me here today specifically? Kaiser was inwardly surprised by the complete composure of his newest student. He could count on his fingers the number of people throughout his long life who could maintain such calm in his presence, especially after learning his true identity. Even though this kid clearly understood what that identity meant and the implications of being his disciple, he sat there calmly with no excessive questions, no awe, no fear, not even basic curiosity about Kaiser's legendary past. Just going straight to the practical point. I'm starting to like this kid. We came here to train you properly, of course. The meat you're currently eating is beast meat from the mutated animals that inhabit this forest. Kaiser gestured vaguely at the surrounding trees. It's extremely nourishing for the body and helps strengthen your physical foundation. All those expensive aura-strengthening resources and vitality-boosting potions that those so-called nobles use are actually made through processed body materials from these same creatures. Damian wasn't particularly surprised by this information. This knowledge might not be widely known among common people or students who never bothered to dig deeper into how the world actually functioned. But Damian remembered clearly what the old beggar had mentioned in his past life about the world inside the novel. Still, he carefully put on an expression like he didn't know any of this, trying to avoid looking suspicious or too knowledgeable. Kaiser noticed the expression and began explaining in more detail, settling into what was clearly a well-practiced lecture. In the year 2350, the portals tore open across the entire world simultaneously, unleashing monstrosities that no human had ever faced or even imagined in their worst nightmares. That single moment changed absolutely everything about human civilization. Humanity realized with terrifying certainty that they were not alone in this vast universe. Constant, brutal struggles against impossible odds eventually allowed some humans to awaken strange powers, to survive when they should have died, to fight back against threats beyond normal comprehension. They gained supernatural abilities, ranking systems, and status screens that defined their exact place in this new world order. This allowed humanity to finally repel the initial waves of monsters and establish defensive positions. But the world itself fundamentally changed that day as well. The very continents slowly began drifting and joining together over the following decades, eventually forming one massive single supercontinent. Though there were still many scattered islands and broken pieces of land, separated by devastating battles that occurred during those chaotic early years. It wasn't only humans who became powerful through this transformation. The animals and nature itself evolved dramatically as well. Although they didn't develop status screens like humans, they followed their own distinct path to power. They mutated. Their bodies gained massive strength and durability. Some even developed special abilities that rivaled or exceeded human capabilities. Unlike humans who formed concentrated aura cores in their chests, these beasts absorbed aura differently. It permeated their entire bodies, their blood, their bones, their muscles, their very cells. And they evolved further by hunting down and consuming their own kind, growing stronger through selective predation and survival of the fittest. Most of these newly evolved beasts were eventually driven out of the main continent, and into the very same portals that had changed the world in the first place. They now served as an unintentional buffer zone between humanity and the true monstrosities that existed beyond those portals. The rest of the beast population inhabited the massive forests and mountain ranges that spread across the continent, creating their own territories and ecosystems. Humanity deliberately allowed these beast populations to multiply and thrive, managing them like renewable resources. Because they were, quite literally, the greatest resource available to humans aside from the natural environment and evolved plants. All aura-strengthening potions, vitality supplements, healing elixirs, every type of enhancement product used by awakeners, all of it was made through carefully processed materials harvested from these beasts' bodies. And information regarding this uncomfortable truth was secretly controlled by both the Federation government and the noble families. They made absolutely sure the general population believed these products were scientifically synthesized in laboratories. Which was technically true. They were indeed manufactured using advanced science and alchemy. But the raw materials were all provided from slaughtered beasts. This forest we're currently in extends deep behind the Academy campus. There are many incredibly strong beasts who have even gained human-level consciousness living in the deepest parts. But don't worry about them. You will only encounter the beasts you can handle at your current level. I made sure of that. Kaiser continued his explanation, gesturing at the dense forest surrounding them. I specifically established Stormhold Academy in this location to serve a dual purpose. If one day any of those powerful beasts tried to break out of the forest and attack human settlements, the Academy would serve as the first line of defense. But that situation has never actually occurred in over a century. His expression turned contemplative. The fate of these beasts is simply to become resources for humanity to exploit. They exist to make us stronger. That's the natural order now. You would be surprised in a few months when those same beasts you look down on unleash their wrath on humans. Damian knew that these beasts would be the first crisis humans would face soon. He remembered his memory of that event very clearly. Kaiser stood up slowly, brushing crumbs from his robes. I brought you here for a very specific reason, boy. You need to advance your abyssal slaughter weapon art to the next level, and that requires more than just technical practice. Kaiser's eyes locked onto Damian's with absolute intensity. The name itself tells you what's required: abyssal slaughter. You must become so intimately familiar with the act of killing, so obsessed with the art of taking lives efficiently, that you develop what's called slaughter intent. Slaughter intent. A manifestation of killing will so powerful it affects reality itself. Your enemies will feel death approaching before your weapon even touches them. Weaker opponents will freeze in terror or flee on instinct. It's the mark of a true master of this art. Kaiser's voice was absolutely serious. Only when you successfully develop genuine slaughter intent can you leave this forest and return to the Academy. Until then, you'll remain here and hunt. How long will that take? Depends entirely on you. Some of my previous disciples achieved it in days. Others took months. A few never managed it at all before dying to the beasts. Kaiser smiled slightly. I'll be checking on your progress periodically. Don't disappoint me. Before Damian could respond or ask any follow-up questions, the old man simply vanished. Not teleportation with any visible effect or sound. Just there one moment, completely gone the next. Damian stood alone in the massive forest, surrounded by ancient trees and the distant sounds of unknown creatures. Great. The first day was relatively calm, as Damian explored his immediate surroundings carefully. He had one significant advantage that Kaiser probably didn't know about. During the Serpent Gang operation, he'd taken a spatial storage ring from Marco's body after killing him. It was a small ring with limited space, but enough to store essentials. His axe was safely stored inside it, along with some emergency supplies. With a thought, the familiar weight of his weapon materialized in his hands. 60 centimeters of obsidian handle, 2 crescent blades, that distinctive circular hole that made it whistle when swung. He felt immediately more secure. The forest was beautiful in its own way, massive trees with trunks wider than houses. Streams of crystal-clear water running between moss-covered rocks. Strange, colorful plants he'd never seen before. But there was also an underlying sense of danger everywhere. The normal forest sounds, birds, insects, small animals were all present. But occasionally, he'd hear something else. Deep roars in the distance that made the ground vibrate. Crashes as something massive moved through the undergrowth far away. Sounds that reminded him these weren't normal animals anymore. By late afternoon, Damian had found a decent stream and drank deeply, refilling a water container he'd found in the storage ring. For food, he'd need to hunt. As if summoned by that thought, he heard movement nearby. Something was approaching through the dense undergrowth, moving with surprising stealth for its size. Damian gripped his axe and waited. A creature emerged into the clearing. It looked somewhat like a wolf, but massively oversized, easily the size of a horse, with midnight black fur that seemed to absorb light. Its eyes glowed faintly red, and its teeth were like daggers. An D-rank Shadowfang wolf, if he remembered his monster classification studies correctly. The beast spotted him and growled, a sound that resonated in his chest. Then it charged. Fast, incredibly fast. Damian's sonic blink activated instinctively. He vanished from the wolf's path and reappeared to its side, his axe already swinging. The blade, infused with his dark crimson aura, met the wolf's flank. But the beast's hide was tough, far tougher than human flesh. The axe bit deep, but didn't kill instantly. The wolf yelped and spun, snapping at him with those terrible jaws. Damian ducked under the bite and struck again, this time aiming for the neck. His abyssal slaughter training kicked in, the belief that one strike should kill, the absolute commitment to each blow. The axe whistled as it swung. Thunk! The blade severed the wolf's head completely, the body collapsing as blood sprayed. Damian stood over the corpse, breathing slightly harder. Tougher than humans, need to adjust my technique. He spent the next hour carefully butchering the wolf, salvaging the meat like he'd seen Kaiser do. That night, he roasted wolf meat over a fire and ate alone under the stars. The meat was surprisingly good, rich and gamey, with an almost electric tingle that suggested high aura content. As he ate, he reflected on Kaiser's words. Slaughter intent. I need to kill so much that it becomes part of me. He thought about the gang members he'd killed last night, the surgical efficiency of his sonic blink assassinations. But that had been cold, tactical, necessary. This needed to be different. More primal. More obsessed. He needed to love the act of killing itself. A roar echoed through the forest, much closer than before. Something had smelled the blood. Damian smiled and picked up his axe. Come on then, let's see what you've got. As the days passed by, they brought more challenges. A pack of 3 razorback boars D+, rank beasts with armored hides and tusks that could gore through steel. Damian fought them simultaneously, his sonic blink allowing him to appear and disappear around them. But these weren't mindless. They coordinated, tried to corner him, used pack tactics. He took a glancing blow from a tusk that tore through his aura shield and opened a gash across his ribs. Pain exploded through his side. Focus, can't afford mistakes here. He channeled more aura into his axe and went on the offensive. The first boar died to a vertical split down its spine. The second lost its head, to a horizontal swing. The third managed to clip his leg before he drove the axe blade through its skull. Damian collapsed beside the corpses, breathing hard, blood running from his wounds. There was no medical wing here, no Dr. Isabel to heal him. He bound his injuries with torn cloth and forced himself to butcher the boars before other predators arrived. That night he ate well, the meat helping his body recover faster than normal. By the next day, his wounds had mostly closed thanks to his vitality stat and the aura-rich diet. He was learning the forest's rhythms, when to hide, when to hunt, which creatures to avoid. He'd seen a massive serpent in the distance, easily D+ rank or higher, and had hidden until it passed. He was not ready for that yet. But the smaller beasts, he was getting efficient. A steel-claw bear, massive, aggressive, covered in metallic-looking fur. Damian didn't hesitate, charged straight at it. The bear rose on its hind legs, roaring a challenge. Damian's axe met its throat mid-roar. Blood fountained as the bear collapsed. He was starting to feel it. That shift Kaiser had mentioned. The kills were becoming easier, more natural with no thinking involved. His axe felt like an extension of his arm now. And when he closed his eyes, he could almost see it. A dark red aura around his weapon that had nothing to do with his normal aura. It even covered his body. Slaughter intent. It was beginning to form. Deep inside the forest, massive trees lay toppled and broken across the scarred earth. The ground was torn up in countless places, deep gouges carved into the soil like claw marks from some titanic battle. Dust still hung in the air, slowly settling. Bodies of various beasts were scattered everywhere, butchered, mangled, and beyond recognition. But one corpse dwarfed all the others. It was a giant serpent, 9 meters tall and 81 meters long. Its severed head lay several feet from its body, massive fangs visible through its gaping mouth. Each fang was the size of a grown man's arm. Huff and huff and huff. A lone figure knelt in front of the massive corpse, using his axe as support to keep from collapsing completely. One of the serpent's smaller fangs was embedded deep in his stomach, blood pooling around the wound. A dark red aura surrounded him, thick and viscous. Unlike normal aura that flickered and dissipated, this energy clung to him like a living thing. It was slaughter intent. The figure was Damian. He'd finally decided to take on that massive serpent he'd been avoiding for weeks. The consequences of that decision were written across his battered body in blood and pain. After getting his breathing somewhat under control, Damian started laughing. The sound echoed through the destroyed forest clearing, manic and triumphant. Fuck, that son of a bitch was strong. I actually almost died there. He gripped the embedded fang with both hands and yanked it out of his stomach with a wet, tearing sound. Blood gushed from the wound. His dark reddish-black aura immediately began working on the injury, crawling across the torn flesh like living threads, pulling it back together. One of the unexpected benefits from his brutal training in this forest was developing a self-healing skill after being forced to use his aura to survive countless injuries. As he focused on healing himself, a dark raven with blood-red eyes suddenly emerged from his shadow like it was made of liquid darkness. It perched on his shoulder, tilting its head to observe him. During one of Damian's many near-death experiences weeks ago, when he'd finally regained consciousness after blacking out from blood loss, this strange creature had already been lying on his stomach, covered in his own blood and staring at him with those unsettling red eyes. And somehow, inexplicably, they'd formed a bond. Damian still wasn't sure how this worked. He'd never heard about beasts bonding with humans like this. Not in this life, and not even from the old beggar who'd read him the novel in his past life. Even his status screen classified it as an unknown entity. But as soon as Damian had bonded with this creature, something else had happened too. He'd awakened a completely new stat. Perception. The Raven was incredibly perceptive, able to detect killing intent in the surroundings before Damian could sense it himself. It helped him track targets through the dense forest, spotting movements and threats he would have missed. Beyond that, Damian hadn't figured out much about the creature's abilities yet, but he could feel its intentions and emotions clearly, like they shared some kind of mental link. One thing Damian knew for certain was that it fed on death energy to grow stronger. Whenever Damian killed prey, the Raven would emerge from his shadow and look at him silently, as if asking permission to feed. Just like it was doing right now. "Go ahead, Kuro." Damian had named him Kuro, meaning black in an ancient language based on how impossibly dark his feathers were, like they absorbed light itself. Kuro took flight and landed gracefully on the massive serpent's corpse. Suddenly, a strange blackish energy began extracting itself from the serpent's body. Wisps of dark smoke rose from every wound, every inch of dead flesh. The same phenomenon occurred with all the other beast corpses scattered around the clearing. Death energy flowing like rivers toward the Raven, who absorbed it all hungrily. Status. While Kuro fed, Damian opened his status screen to check his progress. Name: Damian Valcor. Age: 15. Rank: D+. Talent: S. Core attributes: Strength: 149. Speed: 145. Stamina: 150. Vitality: 170. Aura: D+. Will: 200. Perception: 120. Intent: slaughter. Skills: Shooting: A. Hand combat: A. Telekinesis: C. Macrovision: C. Sonic blink: C. Self-healing: C. Aura control: C+. Aura magnification: 2 times. Weapon arts: Omega Point S, Level 2. Abyssal Slaughter SS, Minor Success. Blood Bond Kuro D rank. Unknown entity. Talent unknown. After weeks of brutal, relentless training in this forest, Damian's core attributes had grown to absurd levels. He genuinely had no idea how far ahead his physique was compared to normal D+ rank awakeners, probably by a massive margin. His aura core had also broken through to D+ rank sooner than he'd expected, though that made sense considering he'd been eating beast meat every day multiple times. The aura-rich flesh had supercharged his growth in both physique and core development. He was already approaching the barrier to C rank, which most people struggled with for years. His newly awakened perception stat sat at 120 points. Damian had no reference for what was normal, but awakening it at all at his current rank was already good. The intent section had appeared on his status screen the moment he'd successfully developed slaughter intent, displaying it clearly. And he'd gained that crucial self-healing skill, which was honestly one of the most valuable things he'd acquired from this entire brutal experience. Being able to survive without constant medical attention was priceless. The status screen also displayed Kuro's basic information, though it was frustratingly vague. Even the system didn't know anything about Kuro beyond his current rank. Kuro is definitely something special. Even my status screen has no information about him, which shouldn't be possible. I've never heard of anything like this existing. Damian stared at the screen for several long moments, questions churning through his mind. He was pulled from his thoughts when Kuro finished feeding, and returned to perch on his shoulder briefly, before dissolving back into his shadow like smoke. As Damian's wound closed enough to move safely, he stood up with a grunt of pain and started walking back toward the academy. He'd been gone for who knew how long at this point. It was probably many weeks. It was time to return to civilization. when he was almost at the forest's edge, nearly able to see the academy buildings in the distance. Kaiser appeared out of nowhere, directly in front of him. "Catch you." The old man tossed Damian's watch at him, which he'd confiscated at the beginning of this training period. Damian caught it reflexively. He had already sent his family a message saying he would be out for training for a while, so there was no need to worry if he didn't reply to their messages. He especially had sent Luna a longer message. Kaiser studied him with a complex expression in his ancient eyes, like he was seeing something that both impressed and disturbed him. "You mastered slaughter intent faster than I expected, much faster. If I didn't know your background and history, I would have genuinely assumed you were a mass murderer." "I was in my past life." Damian kept that thought to himself. "All right, you can head back to the academy now. I'll find you later when you're ready to learn how to advance abyssal slaughter to the next stage." After finishing speaking, the old man simply vanished again. No warning, no farewell. Just gone. Damian stood there alone at the forest's edge, still covered in blood and dirt, holding his watch. "Sigh, you could have at least teleported me back as well, old man. My stomach still has a hole in it." No response came from the empty air. Damian shook his head and started the long walk back to campus, his self-healing skill working overtime to close his wounds. As he walked, Kuro's presence stirred in his shadow, a dark comfort. Even Kaiser had not sensed its presence earlier. His slaughter intent pulsed faintly around him like a second skin. And deep in his chest, his aura core hummed with power, hungry for more growth. "I wonder how much has changed while I was gone. Let's see if the nobles are ready for what I've become." A cold smile crossed his blood-stained face. "Probably not. Eiko, tell me what happened while I was gone. Anything important I need to know about." Damian asked his admin AI assistant as he approached the academy's main entrance. Still covered in dried blood and dirt from his forest training. "While you were absent from campus, Mitchell Thorne officially sent you a ranking challenge request through the proper channels." Eiko's mature female voice resonated from his watch, calm and professional. "However, since you failed to respond within the mandatory 1-week period, he was automatically promoted to first rank by default. You have been demoted to second rank." Damian's expression went completely cold. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing for several long seconds. Then he asked in a carefully controlled voice, "How long was I training in that forest?" "Approximately 2 months total." Seriously, that long? Felt like maybe 3 weeks at most. Time must have passed differently in that isolated forest, or he'd simply lost track completely during the constant hunting and survival. Also, Luna Valcor sent multiple messages, insisting that you must visit home for your upcoming birthday. Eiko paused before continuing. "I informed her previously that you were in the middle of intensive training and could not be contacted. She responded by insisting that as soon as you finish, you must immediately start making plans to ensure you have no excuse to avoid the family gathering." Sigh, right. I nearly forgot my birthday was coming up in a few weeks. Damian rubbed his temples, already feeling the headache of meeting his family again. He had been avoiding them, just sending a few messages here and there. He knew they needed time to come to terms with his current situation. Eiko set a reminder for that later, but first opened the academy forums. "I want to see what's been happening." A holographic display immediately materialized in front of him, showing the trending topics. Breaking news. Damian Valcor fails to show for ranking challenge match. Mitchell Thorne is the new crowned king of first years. Rumors spreading that Damian Valcor was too scared to face Mitchell and deliberately avoided the challenge. The Mafia faction facing severe crisis. Nobles have begun aggressively recruiting lower-ranking members who feel abandoned. The tides have completely shifted. Without Damian Valcor's presence, commoner first years struggling to maintain resistance against noble pressure. Edrin, Ronan, and Lysa continue holding positions in top 10 rankings, but have repeatedly suffered defeats against SS-ranked noble talents in recent matches. Mass defection underway, many lower-ranking commoners now joining noble faction as subordinates, citing lack of leadership and resources in Mafia. Victor Cross, vice head of club's committee, has officially declared Mafia to be an illegal student organization. Warning issued that strict disciplinary action will be taken against all members if organization does not immediately disband. Damian stopped walking completely. His slaughter intent erupted outward involuntarily, thick dark red aura swirling around his entire body like living smoke. The air itself seemed to grow heavier, more oppressive. Several passing students who'd been walking nearby suddenly stopped, their instincts screaming danger. They backed away quickly, without even understanding why. "Let's see how you plan to disband my Mafia, Victor. I didn't bother dealing with you previously because you weren't worth my time, but you really have the guts to come after what's mine while I was gone." His grip on the axe handle tightened until his knuckles went white. He forced himself to breathe slowly and suppress his killing intent before he accidentally scared every student on campus. Then he started walking again, heading deeper into academy grounds. The moment Damian entered the main campus area, students began noticing him. At first just a few casual glances, then double takes, then shocked stares. Is that Damian Valcor? Holy shit, where has he been? Why is he covered in blood? What the hell happened to him? I thought he ran away or got expelled or something. Word spread like wildfire through the student population. Within minutes, dozens of students had gathered at a safe distance, following his progress through campus while whispering frantically to each other. Damian ignored them all completely, his crimson eyes focused straight ahead. But he couldn't ignore the pressure building around him. That strange, oppressive feeling that made people's survival instincts scream at them to run. His slaughter intent was leaking out despite his attempts to contain it, affecting everyone nearby. Students backed away instinctively as he passed, creating a wide bubble of empty space around him. What's wrong with the air around him? I feel like I'm going to throw up. Why do I want to run so badly? That presence, that's not normal for a first-year student. A few braver souls pulled out their phones and started recording. This was going to be all over the forums within the hour. Damian was halfway across the main courtyard when he saw them. Edrin, Lysa, and Ronan running toward him from the direction of the training facilities. All three looked like they'd been through hell these past 2 months. Edrin's face was thinner, more haggard. Dark circles under his eyes suggested countless sleepless nights. Lysa looked exhausted, her bow slung across her back, her hands bandaged. Ronan had fresh bruises on his face and arms, clearly from recent fights. But their eyes lit up the moment they spotted him. "Boss!" Ronan's booming voice carried across the entire courtyard. All three of them reached him at the same time, nearly colliding in their rush. "Boss, you're back. We thought we didn't know if..." Edrin couldn't even finish his sentence, his usual composure completely shattered. "Where the hell have you been for 2 months?" Lysa's voice cracked with emotion, tears forming in her eyes. "We tried everything to find you. Nobody knew anything. Even the professors said you were on special training but wouldn't tell us more." Damian looked at the three of them carefully. They'd grown stronger, that was obvious. Their auras were more refined, their stances more confident. All three of them were at the peak of E+ rank now. But they also looked beaten down, exhausted, like they'd been fighting a losing battle for weeks. "I was training in the forest behind campus, lost track of time." His voice was calm, matter-of-fact. "I heard things have been difficult while I was gone." "Difficult?" Ronan laughed bitterly. "Boss, it's been a complete disaster. Without you here, the nobles have been pushing harder every single day, challenging our members constantly, offering better resources to anyone who switches sides, spreading rumors that you abandoned us." Edrin adjusted his glasses with shaking hands. "We've lost more than half our members, boss. Everyone aside from those who followed us to the first mission. They all left, saying the Mafia couldn't protect them anymore, couldn't provide resources, couldn't compete with noble backing. Victor Cross has been the worst." Lysa's voice turned bitter with anger. "He's been using his position on the club's committee to pressure us constantly, threatening to revoke our training facility access, blocking our resource requests, spreading official declarations that we're an illegal organization." "And Mitchell?" Edrin's face darkened. "Mitchell challenged you officially 2 weeks after you disappeared. When you didn't show up, the system automatically gave him first rank. He's been holding that over everyone's heads, claiming he's proven himself superior." Damian listened to everything silently. His expression didn't change at all, remaining cold and unreadable. But his slaughter intent pulsed stronger, making the air around them feel thick and dangerous. "How many stayed loyal?" 32. Edrin answered immediately. "Out of the original 100+ members we had, 32 refused to leave no matter what. They're waiting at the old shooting range right now. We've been meeting there since Victor tried to ban us from official facilities." Ronan's massive fists clenched. "They stayed because they believe in you, boss. Even when everyone said you ran away, even when things got really bad, they stayed. Xavier, Ariana, all the core members, they're still with us." Damian nodded slowly. "Good. Actually, it's better that the trash left us. When we face hardships in the future, these traitors would have been the first ones to bite us." His crimson eyes swept across the three of them. "You all look like you've been through hell, but you held the line. You kept fighting even when I wasn't here. That's exactly what I needed to see. Why would I even need the Mafia if you guys can't even stand without me?" Then he placed a hand on Edrin's shoulder. "You did well, all of you did well. Now step back and watch." "Watch what, boss?" "Watch what happens when you push me too far." Damian's smile was cold, predatory, absolutely terrifying. "I'm going to show this entire academy exactly who I am. And then I'm going to have a very educational conversation with Victor Cross about what happens when you threaten what belongs to me." The three of them exchanged glances, seeing something in Damian's eyes that hadn't been there 2 months ago. Something very dark and threatening, as if hungry for blood. Whatever training he'd undergone in that forest, it had changed him fundamentally. "Boss." Lysa's voice was quiet, almost fearful. "What happened to you out there? There is something off about you." Damian's smile widened but didn't say anything. Around them, the gathered crowd of watching students had grown to over 100. All of them were staring as they whispered and recorded. Word was spreading rapidly across campus. Damian Valcor had returned. "Boss, where are you going?" Edrin asked as Damian started walking toward the central courtyard, where most students gathered between classes. To remind everyone why they should be afraid. Damian's voice was calm, almost casual. But his slaughter intent pulsed around him like a living thing, making the air itself feel dangerous. The crowd of students following at a distance had grown even larger. Word had spread across campus like wildfire that Damian Valcor had returned after 2 months of complete absence. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. They didn't have to wait long. A familiar voice cut through the murmuring crowd, loud and mocking. "Well, well, well, look who finally crawled back to campus." Quinn Zander pushed through the gathered students, his brown hair perfectly styled, his expensive uniform immaculate. Currently ranked 11th in the first year, earlier when he tried to forcefully recruit commoner students, the Mafia's influence had disrupted his plans. He walked toward Damian with exaggerated confidence, several other noble students flanking him. 2 whole months hiding in the forest like a coward, while Mitchell took your rank. How does it feel to be second place, Valcor? Must be a new experience for someone who thought he was so special. The gathered students went quiet, sensing confrontation. Quinn smiled wider, emboldened by the audience. And now you come back covered in dirt and blood like some kind of wild animal. Pathetic. You should have just stayed. He never finished the sentence. Damian moved. Not sonic blink, just pure speed enhanced by his absurd physical stats. His fist, coated in dark crimson aura mixed with his slaughter intent, slammed into Quinn's face with devastating force. Crack! The sound of Quinn's nose, shattering, echoed across the courtyard. Quinn's head snapped back violently, blood exploding from his face. But Damian wasn't done. His other hand grabbed Quinn's extended arm and twisted. Snap! The bone broke cleanly, elbow bending the wrong way. Quinn's scream was cut short when Damian's palm struck him across the face with aura-enhanced force. The slap sent Quinn flying sideways like a rag doll. He crashed into a nearby wall with a sickening thud and crumpled to the ground, unconscious before he even hit the floor. A deathly silence spread around as nobody moved or breathed. The entire thing had taken less than 3 seconds. Did he break academy rules? You can't attack students outside sanctioned matches. He is not in the council now. Someone should report this to the student council. Damian ignored all the whispers completely. His cold crimson eyes scanned the crowd of students, looking for specific faces. And he found them quickly. Ralph Eddington, Simon DeSirian, several other noble students who'd been actively suppressing the Mafia during his absence. You! Damian pointed directly at Ralph. Come here. Ralph's face went pale, but pride and noble arrogance kept him from backing down in front of so many witnesses. You think you can just assault students and get away with it, Valcor? The rules exist for a reason, and you're going to. Damian closed the distance between them in an instant. Ralph tried to raise his aura defensively, golden energy flaring around his body. It didn't matter. Damian's fist punched straight through the defensive aura like it was made of paper and buried itself in Ralph's stomach. Wham! All the air exploded from Ralph's lungs. His eyes bulged. Damian grabbed him by the collar before he could fall and drove his knee into Ralph's ribs. Crack, crack, crack. 3 ribs broke in rapid succession. Then Damian spun and threw Ralph like a sack of garbage. He crashed into a group of watching students who scattered in panic. Ralph didn't get back up. Simon DeSirian tried to run. Damian's hand shot out, his telekinesis skill activating. Simon's body froze mid-step, lifted slightly off the ground by invisible force. Where do you think you're going? Damian pulled his hand back, and Simon flew toward him against his will, screaming. Damian caught him by the throat. You spread a lot of rumors about me while I was gone, called me a coward, said I ran away. Told commoner students they should abandon the Mafia because I was never coming back. Simon's hands clawed at Damian's grip desperately, his face turning red. Is that what you believe? Crack! Damian headbutted him, shattering Simon's nose and splitting his forehead open. Blood poured down Simon's face as Damian released him. He collapsed to his hands and knees, coughing and gasping. Damian's boot caught him in the ribs, flipping him over onto his back. Then again and again. By the time Damian stepped back, Simon was curled in a ball, whimpering. The crowd had grown massive now, hundreds of students watching in horrified fascination. Standing at the edge of the crowd, Adrian Murdoch watched with a knowing expression. Victoria White stood beside him, her white eyes wide with shock. "Adrian, should we stop this?" "No." His voice was calm, almost amused. "I warned them this would happen. I told them not to push too hard while Damian was gone. They didn't listen." Victoria turned to stare at him. "You knew he would come back like this." "I knew he would come back stronger. I didn't know exactly how much stronger, but I knew enough to tell those idiots to back off." Adrian's purple eyes followed Damian's movements with analytical precision. "Watch and learn, Victoria. This is what happens when you underestimate commoners." Nearby, Fiona Sigurd stood with her arms crossed, her analytical mind working rapidly. She'd been smart enough not to actively participate in suppressing the Mafia, focusing instead on her studies and advancement. Now she was very glad she made that choice. His aura, it's not just stronger, it's different. That dark red energy around him, the pressure everyone's feeling, that's not normal aura at all. Is it some kind of intent? Ruby Frey arrived on the scene fashionably late, pushing through the crowd with her usual careless confidence. Her dark pink hair was styled elaborately, her makeup perfect. She took one look at the beaten students on the ground and laughed. "Oh my God, Damian, you're back from wherever you were hiding and immediately start beating people up. How barbaric." She walked closer, clearly not taking the situation seriously at all. "You know, for someone who claims to be so strong, you sure run away a lot. 2 months in the forest. Sounds like you were too scared to face Mitchell's challenge and needed an excuse." Her mocking voice carried across the silent courtyard. "Now you're back and attacking people who can't even defend themselves properly. Is this supposed to impress everyone? Because honestly, it just makes you look desperate and—" Damian's hand moved. His fingers tangled in Ruby's elaborately styled hair and yanked her head down violently. "What the? Let go of me right now, you disgusting." Wham! His knee crashed into her face. Blood exploded from her nose, her lips splitting open. Ruby screamed, trying to pull away, her hands clawing at his grip. "Do you know who I am? My family will destroy you for this. Let go." Damian's other fist slammed into her stomach. Ruby doubled over, gagging. "You talk too much." His voice was ice cold. He released her hair only to grab her arm, twisting it behind her back. Ruby's aura flared desperately, pink energy trying to protect her. Damian's slaughter intent crushed it effortlessly. Crack! He broke her arm at the elbow. Ruby's scream was piercing, agonized. "Stop, please. I'll stop talking, please." "No, I don't think you will." Damian grabbed her other arm. Ruby tried to activate her weapon art, pink energy gathering around her free hand. Too slow. Damian twisted. R.I.P. The sound was wet, terrible. Ruby's arm tore partially from her shoulder, held on by threads of muscle and skin. Not completely severed, but devastatingly damaged. Her scream cut off as shock set in, her body going limp. Damian released her, and she collapsed like a broken doll, unconscious from pain and trauma. Complete and utter silence fell across the entire courtyard. Nobody moved, nobody spoke, nobody even seemed to breathe. What they just witnessed crossed a line far beyond normal student conflict. He actually. That's a noble daughter from a powerful family. It's Damian you are talking about. He went after Senior Mara as well. Who is Ruby compared to her? That bitch deserved it. Doesn't she have some brains to understand the situation? Well, she has always been arrogant, acting like an entitled bitch. Damian stood over Ruby's unconscious form, his expression completely calm. not a hint of remorse or concern. Anyone else want to comment on where I've been? No response came from anyone. Just terrified silence, that's enough. A commanding voice cut through the shocked silence like a blade. The crowd parted immediately as three figures strode forward with absolute authority. Mitchell Thorne led the way, his golden aura already flaring around him like a blazing sun. His perfectly styled hair and immaculate student council badge marked him as someone used to being obeyed. Leonard Ashford walked at his right, gray aura swirling around his frame like storm clouds. His expression was dark with fury. Iris Langston took the left position, her blue aura crackling with barely contained energy. Her eyes were locked on Damian with open hostility. All three were heirs to imperial families. All three had reached D rank. All three radiated the kind of power that made normal students instinctively back away. They stopped a few meters from Damian, forming a line between him and the crowd. What you just did crosses every line this academy has. Mitchell's voice was cold, controlled, filled with righteous anger. Attacking fellow students outside sanctioned matches, causing severe injuries and almost permanent damage to a noble daughter from a respected family. His golden eyes swept over the broken bodies scattered around the courtyard. This is completely barbaric and unacceptable. Leonard's hands clenched into fists, his gray aura intensifying. You think you can just come back after 2 months of hiding and start beating people half to death? You think there are no consequences for this kind of violence? Iris stepped forward, her blue aura crackling dangerously. Look at what you did to Ruby. She'll need weeks of medical treatment. Her arm might never fully recover. Her voice shook with genuine anger. You're nothing but a thug, a violent animal who doesn't belong in this academy. Mitchell raised his hand, and the student council badge on his uniform caught the light. As the current first-ranked student and a member of the student council, I am officially ordering you to stand down immediately and report to the council room for disciplinary action. His voice carried absolute authority, the kind that came from a lifetime of being obeyed without question. Refuse, and we will be forced to subdue you by any means necessary. Damian's expression didn't change at all throughout the entire speech. His cold crimson eyes just stared at Mitchell with complete disinterest. Then he spoke, his voice utterly casual. Who the fuck are you supposed to be? Mitchell's face twitched with anger. I know what you think you are. Current first rank, heir to an imperial family and member of the student council. A big shot. Damian's tone was dismissive, mocking. But you seem to have forgotten something important. You fainted just from feeling my aura 4 months ago, passed out like a scared child before I even touched you. The gathered crowd gasped at the reminder. It was true. During that first confrontation, Mitchell had collapsed from the pressure of Damian's presence alone. Mitchell's face flushed red with humiliation and rage. That was before. I'm stronger now. We're all stronger now. His golden aura exploded outward with overwhelming force. Leonard and Iris released their full auras as well, gray and blue energy, combining with Mitchell's gold to create a devastating pressure that made watching students stagger backward. The combined weight of 3 D-rank Imperial heirs was suffocating. Normal students would have been forced to their knees. Damian didn't even blink. Is that supposed to impress me? We know you're strong, Damian. Mitchell's voice was tight with controlled fury. Your initial talent assessment was clearly wrong. You're probably S-rank talent or higher, but we're not the weak students you faced 2 months ago. We've trained under our family's best instructors. We've mastered advanced techniques. We've grown. He drew a longsword that gleamed with golden energy, the blade obviously a high-quality weapon passed down through his family. The 3 of us together can match even the strongest of second-year seniors. not to mention you. Leonard summoned twin daggers that crackled with gray lightning. Iris pulled out an elegant rapier, surrounded by swirling blue water. All three weapons were clearly treasures worth fortunes, enhanced by generations of imperial family resources. Damian looked at the three armed heirs standing before him and laughed. A short, genuinely amused sound. You really think you've caught up to me in just these few months? His smile was cold, predatory. Fine, I couldn't be bothered to waste time talking anyway. All three of you attack me together right now. Use everything you have. Shocked murmurs rippled through the crowd. Is he serious? Three imperial heirs at once. He's going to get destroyed. Mitchell's eyes narrowed. You're giving us permission to attack, together. I'm not just giving permission, I'm ordering you to. Damian spread his arms wide, making himself an open target. Attack me. Use your weapons, your arts, your skills, everything, and I won't even move from this spot. He planted his feet and crossed his arms over his chest. Show me how much you've grown. The insult was clear, the arrogance absolute. Mitchell's face went red with fury. You'll regret this. Boom! All three of them moved simultaneously. Mitchell's golden aura blazed brighter as he activated his weapon art, the longsword's edge extending with pure condensed energy. Imperial Sever. The blade came down in a devastating vertical slash, aimed at Damian's shoulder. Leonard attacked from the left, his twin daggers wreathed in gray lightning as he activated his own art. Storm's Edge. The daggers moved in a blur, each strike leaving crackling trails of electricity in the air. Iris came from the right, her rapier surrounded by spiraling water as she thrust forward with incredible speed. Depth Pierce. The water-coated blade aimed directly for Damian's heart. 3 attacks, 3 directions, 3 D-rank Imperial heirs using family weapon arts worth more than most students would earn in their entire lives. The combined force would have killed a normal student instantly. Clang, clang, clang. All 3 weapons hit Damian's body simultaneously and stopped dead. His aura-hardened skin and insane vitality stat absorbed the impact like he was made of solid steel. Sparks flew from the points of contact. The weapons didn't penetrate at all. They just stopped. Damian stood completely still, arms still crossed, not even bothering to dodge. Is that it? His voice was utterly bored. Mitchell's eyes went wide with disbelief. Impossible, my blade should have. Again. Damian's tone was commanding. You have my permission, attack again, harder this time. Leonard snarled with rage and pulled back, his gray aura intensifying further. Lightning barrage. His daggers became blurs of motion, each strike enhanced with crackling electricity. Dozens of attacks in seconds, each one aimed at vital points. The lightning aura should have paralyzed muscles, disrupted enemy aura, created openings. It did nothing. Damian's body absorbed every strike, his own aura and slaughter intent creating a barrier that conventional attacks couldn't breach. Iris switched tactics, her blue aura swirling more intensely around her rapier. Tidal Spiral. Water energy condensed around her blade as she thrust repeatedly, each attack drilling forward with rotating force designed to penetrate defenses. The technique had won her countless matches against other students. Against Damian, it might as well have been a gentle breeze. Mitchell gritted his teeth and channeled even more power into his longsword. Golden Cascade. His weapon art reached its peak form, the blade extending into a massive energy construct 3 times its normal size. He brought it down with both hands, every ounce of his D-rank power focused into a single devastating blow. Boom! The impact created a shockwave that knocked nearby students off their feet. Dust exploded outward from the point of impact. For a moment, nobody could see through the cloud. Then it cleared and Damian stood in the exact same position, arms still crossed, completely unharmed. Not a scratch or bruise was visible. Not even a tear in his blood-stained clothes, beyond what was already there. His cold crimson eyes stared at Mitchell with complete disdain. "Anything else? Or are you done embarrassing yourselves?" Silence hung heavy over the courtyard. 3 Imperial heirs stood panting, their weapons trembling in their hands, sweat dripping down their faces despite the cool air. Every single attack of theirs had failed. Damian had not even blocked the attacks, and yet they were completely ineffective. Like trying to cut through solid steel with wooden swords. Mitchell's perfect composure was cracking. His golden aura flickered with frustration and growing fear. "This doesn't make sense. No first-year student should be able to tank our combined attacks without even defending. It's impossible." Leonard wiped blood from his lip, where he'd bitten it in frustration. He's not even using his aura to actively defend. His body is just that strong naturally. How the hell did he train his body to be so fucking strong? Iris's hands shook as she gripped her rapier tighter. "We need to use them. There's no other choice." Mitchell's jaw clenched. He knew exactly what she meant. The techniques their families had forbidden them from using casually. The inherited skills passed down through imperial bloodlines that set them apart from common nobles. Their true trump cards. "Fine." Mitchell's voice was hard, determined. "But if we're using those, we use them together, all at once, no holding back." Leonard and Iris nodded. The 3 of them stepped back, creating distance from Damian. Suddenly, their auras changed as they intensified and transformed into something qualitatively different from before. Mitchell's golden aura began to solidify, taking physical form around his body like armor made of pure light. His eyes glowed with inner radiance. Imperial skill of House Thorn. His voice resonated with power. Divine Aegis. Golden wings of pure energy erupted from his back. His longsword blazed so brightly it hurt to look at directly. The pressure radiating from him multiplied several times over. This was the Thorn family's inherited skill. For short periods, they could transform their aura into a divine construct that dramatically amplified their offensive and defensive capabilities. It was this skill that had made their family one of the 13 great powers. Leonard's gray aura turned black as midnight, crackling with purple lightning that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality itself. Imperial skill of House Ashford. His voice went cold, emotionless. Void step. His body flickered, becoming semi-transparent. He could now move through space itself for brief moments, making him nearly impossible to track or hit. The Ashford family's bloodline skill. Partial manipulation of spatial dimensions, allowing them to strike from impossible angles and avoid attacks by stepping briefly out of reality. Iris's blue aura condensed into flowing liquid that covered her entire body like a second skin. Her rapier dissolved completely, reforming as pure water that could change shape at will. Imperial skill of House Langston. Her voice was calm now, focused. Oceanic form. Her body became partially liquid, able to flow around attacks and reform instantly. Her strikes could come from any direction as the water extended and retracted at her command. The Langston family's inherited skill. Temporary transformation into a water state being, granting both incredible defense and unpredictable offense. All 3 skill active simultaneously. The combined pressure was monstrous. Students at the edge of the crowd were forced to their knees, unable to stand under the weight of 3 awakened imperial bloodlines. Even Edrin, Ronan, and Lysa stumbled backward, their faces pale. "Boss." Ronan's voice was barely a whisper. Can he really handle this? They'd never seen anything like this before. These weren't just powerful techniques. These were the legendary skills that defined the ruling families of the Federation. Adrian watched from the sidelines with intense focus, his analytical mind cataloging every detail. So, they were forced to use the inherited skills as well. Can he handle it? But his eyes kept returning to Damian, who still hadn't moved. He still stood with his arms crossed as he tilted his head in boredom. Attack! Mitchell's voice was commanding. All three of them moved as one. Mitchell came from above, his divine wings propelling him through the air at incredible speed. His longsword, now blazing with holy light, came down in an overhead strike that would split a building in half. Leonard flickered in and out of reality, his void step ability making him appear and disappear around Damian. Each flicker was accompanied by a strike from his lightning-wreathed daggers aimed at vital points. Iris flowed around Damian like a living tide, her water form attacking from every angle simultaneously. Dozens of water blades formed and thrust toward him from all directions. The combined assault was overwhelming and beautiful in its coordinated destruction. Any normal student would have been obliterated in seconds. Boom! Mitchell's divine blade struck Damian's shoulder with the force of a meteor. The impact created a shockwave that shattered windows in nearby buildings. Leonard's daggers found their marks, purple lightning exploding across Damian's torso in a dozen places. Iris's water blades converged from every direction, each one sharp enough to cut through steel. For a moment, Damian was completely obscured by the combined attacks. Golden light, purple lightning, and flowing water, all converging on a single point. The watching students held their breath. Surely no one could survive that right. The energy dissipated soon. And what came in their sight was Damian still standing in the same spot. His uniform was torn now, burned in places from the lightning and slashed from the water blades. And his shoulder had a cut that was bleeding. The first real injury they'd managed to inflict. But it was shallow and barely more than a scratch despite Mitchell's full power behind it. Damian looked down at the blood running down his arm. Then he looked back up at the three heirs with that same bored expression. Congratulations, you actually made me bleed a little. He wiped the blood with his finger and examined it. But is this really the best the great imperial families can do? Is this the extent of the legendary inherited skills that supposedly make you untouchable? Or is it that you guys are just too weak? His voice dripped with contempt. Pathetic. Mitchell's face went white with shock and helplessness. How are you still standing? That attack should have torn you apart. You are just too weak. Damian's slaughter intent suddenly exploded outward with devastating force. The dark red aura became visible to everyone, swirling around him like flames from hell itself. Students at the edge of the crowd screamed and ran as soon as the slaughter intent was released to its highest capacity. The pressure was too much, their survival instincts overriding everything else, filling them with absolute fear. It's my turn now. Damian finally uncrossed his arms. And I don't even need my weapon to beat you. He moved. He didn't use sonic blink, but just raw speed from his absurd physical stats. One moment he was standing still, and the next moment, he was in front of Mitchell, who was still airborne from his diving attack thanks to his wings. Damian's fist, coated in slaughter intent and dark crimson aura, drove into Mitchell's stomach. Crack! The divine armor shattered like glass. Mitchell's eyes bulged as all the air exploded from his lungs. Blood sprayed from his mouth. Damian grabbed him by the face while he was still reeling and drove him into the ground. Boom! The impact cratered the courtyard floor as cracks spread around the entire floor like a spiderweb. Mitchell's divine wings flickered and died, and his golden aura sputtered weakly. Leonard tried to attack from behind, using his void step to appear directly behind Damian's head, with both daggers thrust forward. Damian's hand shot backward without even looking. His perception stat was so high, he didn't even need to look around with eyes. He caught Leonard's wrist mid-strike. "Cute trick." He yanked Leonard forward and head-butted him so hard the crack of breaking bone echoed across the courtyard. Leonard's nose exploded in blood. His void step ability flickered and failed as his concentration shattered. Damian spun and threw him at Iris. Iris tried to flow around the incoming body using her watcher form, but Damian was already there. His foot caught her in the stomach before she could complete the transformation. Boom! The kick folded her in half and sent her flying backward. She crashed through a stone bench, her water form dispersing involuntarily from the impact. She tried to reform, water gathering around her. Damian was on her before she could complete it. His hand grabbed her throat and lifted her off the ground. "Your family's ability is interesting. Shame you're too weak to use it properly." He slammed her into the ground once, twice, 3 times. Each impact drove her deeper into the cracked earth. By the 3rd hit, her aura completely gave out and she went limp. Mitchell was trying to stand, blood pouring from his mouth, his divine armor completely gone. "Stay down, golden boy." Damian's voice was cold. "You don't need to get back up." Bam, bam, bam. His boot caught Mitchell in the ribs, sending him flying. Then again and again. Damian was methodical and completely brutal. Each kick was precisely placed to maximize pain without causing permanent damage. The crowd watched in absolute horror as their first-ranked student, their student council representative, their golden prince, got beaten like a common thug. Leonard tried one more void step, appearing beside Damian with a desperate last attack. Damian caught his wrist again, and this time he twisted it completely. Snap! Leonard's wrist broke. His dagger fell from nerveless fingers. Damian's other hand grabbed Leonard's shoulder and pulled. Pop! Ah! The shoulder was completely dislocated as Leonard screamed. "Last time Gareth saved your ass." Damian's voice was utterly calm despite the violence. "And yet, you foolishly went against me again. You better know your place now, Ant." He released Leonard, who collapsed to his knees, clutching his ruined arm before finishing his sentence. "It's below my foot." Then he put his foot on Leonard's humiliated face and pressed it to the ground. Bam! All 3 Imperial heirs lay broken on the ground. Their legendary skills, their family treasures, their intensive training, their SS-ranked talents. None of it mattered. Damian stood over them, barely even breathing hard, while they gasped and bled and whimpered. The silence was absolute. Every single person watching understood what they'd just witnessed. This wasn't a fight between students, but a completely one-sided humiliation. It was a declaration that there was only one person who ruled the first year. And his name was Damian Valcor. Damian's cold crimson eyes swept across the massive crowd. "Anyone else want to lecture me on my violence?" No one dared to answer Damian's question. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating, broken only by the labored breathing of the 3 broken heirs lying at his feet. Damian stood there for a long moment, letting his cold crimson eyes sweep across every face in the massive crowd that had gathered to witness this brutal display. Students from all years were present now. Even some other student council members had arrived at the edges, watching with complicated expressions but making no move to intervene. They all knew the truth that nobody wanted to say out loud. Damian Valcor was beyond their authority now. He'd crossed into territory where normal academy rules simply didn't apply anymore, because enforcing them would require power that nobody present possessed. Damian's gaze finally settled on a student standing near the back of the crowd, partially hidden behind others. A nervous-looking third year holding a lit cigar in one hand and a lighter in the other, probably having snuck out for a quick smoke before getting caught up in the spectacle. Damian's telekinesis activated. The cigar and lighter were suddenly ripped from the student's hands by invisible force, floating through the air toward Damian as the crowd gasped and parted to let the objects pass. The student's face went white with terror, thinking he was about to be attacked next. But Damian caught both items casually, brought the cigar to his lips, and lit it with a smooth, practiced motion. He took a long drag, the tip glowing bright orange in the afternoon light, then exhaled a cloud of smoke slowly. The image was striking in its casual arrogance. Standing over 3 beaten imperial heirs and several other nobles, covered in their blood and his own dirt, smoking a stolen cigar like he owned the entire world and everything in it. Several girls in the crowd actually sighed, despite the violence they just witnessed. He's terrifying, but also kind of. Don't say it, don't you dare say it. Really attractive when he's like this. You need therapy. Shut up, I know you also have those thoughts about him. Damian took another drag from the cigar, then looked toward where Edrin, Ronan, and Lysa stood watching with expressions caught between awe and a bit of fear. Let's go, we have work to do. His voice was calm, conversational, like he hadn't just brutalized the 3 strongest students in their year. The 32 who stayed loyal are waiting at the shooting range, right? Time to remind them why they made the correct choice. Edrin nodded mutely, still processing everything he'd just seen. Ronan started grinning like a madman despite his earlier fear, his faith in Damian completely vindicated. Lysa looked like she wanted to say something about the excessive violence, but wisely kept her mouth shut. Damian started walking toward them, stepping over Mitchell's groaning body without even glancing down. The crowd parted before him like water before a ship's prow, students scrambling to get out of his path. Nobody wanted to be within arm's reach of him right now. As Damian passed by Adrian and Victoria, he made brief eye contact with the purple-haired heir. Adrian's expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes held a knowing glint. This is exactly what I expected, maybe even less violent than I predicted. Victoria stood frozen beside him, her white eyes wide with shock at what she'd witnessed. Adrian, how is this even possible? How could he handle those attacks so easily? I've never seen anything like it. I don't know. Adrian's voice was quiet enough that only she could hear. All I know is, I fear his calculative mind more than his strength. What he did in the end with the cigar was clearly for psychological dominance. It was his way of telling everyone watching, I own this place. Fiona Sigurd stood nearby as well, her analytical mind working furiously behind her glasses. She was already calculating the new power dynamics, the political implications, the ways this single incident would reshape everything about the first-year hierarchy. The Mafia isn't just going to survive now, it's going to dominate completely. Anyone who doesn't see that is a fool. She made a mental note to avoid antagonizing Damian at all costs, and possibly even find ways to cooperate without officially joining his faction. Neutrality seemed like the wisest position right now. Damian reached Edrin, Ronan, and Lysa, then paused to take one final drag from the cigar. He flicked it aside, the lit end leaving a glowing arc in the air before hitting the ground. Walk with me, tell me everything that happened while I was gone, and mark all those who left the Mafia previously. Never let them join us again. His tone was businesslike now, already moving past the violence and onto practical matters. And someone needs to explain to me how the fuck did Victor Cross think he had the authority to declare my organization illegal. That's going to require a personal response. The four of them started walking away from the courtyard, leaving behind the beaten airs, the terrified crowd, and the shocked student council members who still hadn't decided how to handle this situation. But before Damian was out of view, he glanced at a far-away place for a moment, before looking away. He even sensed our location. Serafina Vale and Salazar Blackwood were standing at the place where Damian glanced, and both of them exchanged a surprised glance. They were slightly shocked at how Damian was even able to sense them, but they also disappeared soon after. The crowd of the students slowly began to move again, whispering frantically to each other. Did that really just happen? 3 imperial heirs with their inherited skills active, and he barely got scratched. He didn't even use his weapon or any skill, just his fists. Someone needs to call the medical wing. Mitchell and the others need serious treatment. Who's going to tell the professors what happened? Are you crazy? Nobody's going to report this. You saw what he did. You want to be next. Among the crowd, several students pulled out their watches and immediately started posting on the academy forums. Within minutes, the incident was spreading like wildfire across the entire campus network. Videos recorded by dozens of students from multiple angles were being uploaded and shared. The narrative was already forming. Damian Valcor had returned from 2 months of mysterious training and immediately established absolute dominance over the entire first year by defeating 3 imperial heirs simultaneously. The Mafia wasn't dead. It was stronger than ever, and anyone who'd thought about opposing it was now reconsidering very carefully. In the medical wing, Professor Richard Evergreen received an emergency call on his watch. Multiple students with severe injuries incoming. 3 priority cases requiring immediate treatment. They are the SS-ranked talents of the first year. He sighed heavily, already knowing somehow that Damian Valcor would be involved. That kid was becoming a regular source of overtime work. Dr. Isabel appeared beside him, looking resigned. Let me guess, Damian Valcor is back. Sai, get the emergency pods ready. From what I'm hearing, we're going to need all of them. Damian walked through campus with his 3 lieutenants flanking him, heading toward the old shooting range where the loyal Mafia members waited. Boss, about Victor Cross. Edrin spoke carefully, adjusting his glasses. He's apparently planning to bring formal charges against the Mafia at the council meeting, trying to get official sanctions that would ban us from all academy facilities and resources. When's the meeting? Tomorrow afternoon. Damian's smile was cold and sharp. Perfect. That gives me exactly enough time to have some much-needed rest. Victor Cross wants to play politics. Fine. I'll show him what happens when you try to use rules and regulations against someone who doesn't give a fuck about either. Ronan laughed, the sound booming across the empty pathway. This is going to be good. I can't wait to see his face. Lysa looked worried but kept her thoughts to herself, following along silently. They reached the old shooting range, and Damian pushed open the doors. Inside, 32 students stood waiting, their faces lighting up the moment they saw him. Xavier was there, still looking as anxious as always. Ariana stood calmly near the back. Other familiar faces from the Tranquil City operation were scattered throughout. These were the ones who'd stayed. The ones who'd believed in him, even when everyone else didn't. The ones who deserved to be rewarded for their loyalty. Damian looked at each of them in turn, his expression softening just slightly. Thank you for waiting. It's been 2 months since we last saw each other, and a lot has happened in that time. Damian sat down in the instructor's chair behind the desk, his blood-stained clothes an exhausted posture contrasting sharply with the authority in his voice. I went to the forest behind the academy for training. It wasn't planned, otherwise I would have dealt with these noble bastards before disappearing for so long. His crimson eye swept across the faces of the 32 students gathered in the old shooting range. Now I come back and find that the Mafia has been reduced to just us. The same people who participated in the first mission in Tranquil City. Everyone else ran away the moment things got difficult, claiming we couldn't protect them or provide resources. Many of those present looked down at their feet, embarrassed. Among those who'd left were their friends, people they'd trained with and trusted. It stung worse than any noble insult. Xavier felt it most acutely. He was from Section D, and not a single student from that section had remained in the Mafia. They'd been the weakest links, the easiest targets for the noble faction's aggressive recruitment. But honestly, it's actually a good thing they left. Damian's tone was matter-of-fact, almost casual. Anyone who can't handle even a little bit of pressure has no place in my organization. The Mafia isn't a fucking charity. You need to understand something fundamental here. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. You all are the Mafia, and the Mafia is you. It doesn't just depend on me alone. If a day comes when I find you all so incompetent that you can't even handle basic adversity without me holding your hands, then I'll disband this entire thing myself. Heavy silence fell across the shooting range. Even Edrin, Ronan, and Lysa adopted serious expressions, understanding the weight behind those words. I never planned to start building my organization here at the academy first. You're all just students, after all, but you have something that matters more than experience or resources. Damian's voice softened slightly. You have potential, the greatest potential in the entire Federation, concentrated right here in this academy. And it's that potential alone that made me decide to invest my time and effort into supporting you. He paused, letting that sink in. Ever since I arrived at this academy, everyone keeps saying the same thing. Commoners lack resources. Commoners can't compete. Commoners will always be subordinates. Well, today I'm going to start fixing that problem. Damian waved his hand, and a massive chunk of beast meat materialized on the desk from his spatial storage ring. The meat was clearly high quality, still fresh, radiating a faint aura that everyone in the room could feel even from a distance. Several students gasped. This is beast meat from the creatures living in that forest. All of you have demonstrated genuine loyalty and proven yourselves worthy to be called my brothers and sisters, so I'm not going to let you down either. Damian's voice carried conviction. This meat is extremely rich in aura. It's actually better than those expensive aura-strengthening potions and supplements that nobles were using to recruit our weaker members. The same resources their families pay thousands of coins for. This is the raw material it's made from. Excited murmurs spread through the crowd. You'll all eat it right here, right now. And while you do, I'll use my willpower to personally guide the aura circulation inside your bodies. This is a rare opportunity, so pay close attention to the pathways I show you. I don't usually have enough time or energy to spend guiding others like this. His eyes swept across them all. Today, all of you are going to advance in rank. We can discuss everything else afterward. Whoa, boss is really going all out for us. I heard rumors that those expensive aura-strengthening potions were related to these beasts somehow. Those companies always claim their products are made purely through science and chemistry, so I never knew what to believe. Just try the meat. Boss wouldn't give us anything harmful. Let me go first. I want to break through already. Damian allowed himself a small smile, watching their excited faces and genuine enthusiasm. One by one, each student came forward while Damian guided their aura circulation using his abnormally high willpower stat. The process was mentally exhausting for him, but incredibly effective for them. Xavier volunteered to go first, practically bouncing with nervous excitement. The moment he started eating the meat and followed the circulation pathway that Damian's willpower was showing him, everything suddenly became crystal clear. Nobody had ever guided him like this before, not once in his entire life. His breathing technique, which he'd always struggled with, became easier and faster thanks to the optimal path Damian was revealing to him. The aura from the meat flowed smoothly through his body, strengthening his core with each cycle. Boom! A dull resonance reverberated inside Xavier's chest as he broke through from E rank to E+ rank in a single session. It was incredible. He wasn't even an S-rank talent, and yet he'd achieved the same rank as Edrin and the others in just minutes. Professor Serafina had set E+ rank as the target goal for all Section A students to reach before entering their second year. The difficulty of achieving that was enormous for normal students. Don't compare it to monsters like Damian, Mitchell, and the other SS rank freaks. They were abnormal outliers far above average. For regular students, especially someone from Section D like Xavier who didn't even have access to quality professors like Serafina, this kind of breakthrough was almost miraculous. Thank you, boss. I swear I'll follow you for the rest of my life. Tears streamed down Xavier's face as he suddenly dropped to his knees in front of Damian. Only after consuming the meat and receiving Damian's personal guidance did he truly understand the immense value of what he'd just been given. Damian was caught off guard by the intensity of the reaction, but his expression softened into a genuine smile when he saw the pure sincerity and gratitude shining in Xavier's tearful eyes. Get up, stop being so melodramatic, Xav. No need for all this. But Xavier's reaction set the tone. One by one, the other students came forward and received the same treatment. Each one experienced the same revelation that Xavier had. The pathways Damian showed them were perfect for their individual bodies, optimized in ways they never could have discovered alone. Every single student gathered managed to break through at least one minor rank. Some of the weaker ones jumped 2 ranks with Damian's guidance and the high-quality beast meat. Only now did they truly comprehend the value of what Damian had given them so freely. This wasn't just food or a simple boost. This was the kind of personalized training that noble heirs paid fortunes for and received only from their family's best instructors. When it was Ariana's turn to step forward, she hesitated and shook her head. I think you should save this for yourself, boss. Looking at everyone's progress, it's obvious this meat is extremely precious. I can't take it in good conscience. Her calm black eyes met his directly. Just help me with the aura guidance if you want. That's already more than enough. Damian shook his head with a slight smile. Don't worry about it. This meat doesn't have much effect on my body anymore. My physical stats are already too high for it to make a significant difference, so I might as well use it to strengthen you all instead. He pushed a chunk toward her. Now stop worrying over silly things and eat it. Ariana knew he was lying. Anyone could feel the potent aura radiating from the meat. Even someone as strong as Damian would benefit from consuming it. But she also understood that arguing would be pointless and potentially disrespectful. She ate the meat and followed his guidance, breaking through to E+ rank just like the others. Everyone except Edrin, Ronan, and Lysa managed full breakthroughs. Those 3 were already at E+ rank and needed significantly more time and resources to push to the next level. Their foundations were solid, but advancing from E+ to D rank required both physical conditioning and core development. Still, even they made progress. Their aura cores advanced to D rank. They just needed to continue training their bodies to match, and the full breakthrough would come naturally. By the time Damian finished guiding the last person, sweat was pouring down his forehead, and soaking through his already blood-stained clothes. His breathing had become noticeably uneven, and his hands trembled slightly from mental exhaustion. During his earlier fight with Mitchell, Leonard, and Iris, Damian had remained completely relaxed. He hadn't even broken a sweat, while dominating 3 Imperial heirs simultaneously. But looking at his current condition made it painfully obvious just how much effort and mental energy guiding 32 people individually had cost him. Using willpower to guide someone else's aura circulation was exponentially more difficult than controlling your own. Phew, all done. Now we can finally talk about how things are going with the Mafia operations in Tranquil City. Damian wiped the sweat from his face with his sleeve, his other hand rubbing his tired eyes. He was clearly exhausted but trying to push through. When no response came, Damian opened his eyes and was genuinely surprised to find every single member of the Mafia kneeling with their heads bowed low. "Sai, what are you all doing now? Stop this and get up. We're supposed to be family here, not some feudal court." Damian's voice carried a note of exasperation. Everyone stood up slowly, but nobody spoke. The silence itself communicated volumes. They would remember what Damian had done for them today, how much personal effort and energy he'd expended to help them grow stronger. If previously they'd viewed Damian as their boss, their leader in a criminal organization, now he felt like something more fundamental. He has now become their guardian and teacher who cared about their development, something like a godfather. No professor had ever given them individual guidance like this. No senior student had spent their time helping commoners improve. Nobody had ever invested this much personal effort into their growth. They'd never even heard of a professor using their willpower to directly guide students through aura circulation. Maybe some did it for their own family members in private, but not for random students, never with this level of personal attention and care. It didn't seem like a big deal to Damian, who was used to helping his Mafia members back in his previous life. But for these students who'd experienced months of systematic oppression and realized just how cruel and unfair this world was toward commoners, what Damian had just done felt like the greatest blessing imaginable. They'd memorized the circulation pathways his willpower had revealed in their bodies. Following those optimized routes would accelerate their training speed dramatically compared to before. Everyone's body was slightly different, with unique quirks and natural tendencies. And yet Damian had found the most suitable pathway for each individual person, ensuring their breathing techniques would flow more naturally and efficiently. Looking at their tearful eyes filled with gratitude and devotion, Damian understood what they were feeling. But he was getting genuinely uncomfortable with all the emotional intensity, so he cleared his throat and changed the subject. "Edrin, how much money has Marco been sending, and what's the current progress on occupying the outer region of Tranquil City? Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story, and if have any suggestion to a new novel or want next part of any series, comment down. Our target is to get 1K subscriber. There will be SUPRISC for all of you. Stay tuned."